Hello and welcome back to Jo's Art History Podcast Bitesize, small, manageable podcast episodes that see me, Jo McLaughlin, your host and resident art historian, deep dive into a specific artwork or artist in 10 minutes or less. This week we are doing a whistle-stop tour through the life and works of the incredible Eduardo Paolozzi. Let's get started. For those of you that may not know, Eduardo Paolozzi was a Scottish artist of Italian descent and is renowned for his influence on the pop art movement and his prolific work in sculpture, collage and printmaking. Born on the 7th of March 1924 in Leith, Edinburgh, Paolozzi was the son of Italian immigrants. His early life was marked by complexities of identity and belonging and navigating his way in a world, trying to figure out who he was between his Scottish upbringing and his Italian heritage, which would later become an influence in his artistic vision. During World War II, following Italy's declaration of war on Britain, Paolozzi's father was interned and tragically died en route to Canada when the SS Andorra Star was torpedoed. This personal tragedy deeply affected Paolozzi, instilling a sense of loss and displacement that would echo through his later work. After leaving school, the artist briefly attended the Edinburgh College of Art before being conscripted into national service. Following his discharge, he enrolled in the Slade School of Fine Art in London in 1944 to 1947, where he was exposed to a wide range of artistic techniques and philosophies. Now, Paolozzi's early works were heavily influenced by Surrealism. This is the works he created throughout the 1940s and 50s. And he was particularly fascinated with dreams, machines and the human psyche. And it was during the 1940s he moved to Paris, where he interacted with leading surrealist artists such as Alberto Giacometti, Jan Arp and Ferdinand Liguier. The Parisian scene was a melting pot of ideas, and Paolozzi absorbed its ethos, drawing inspiration from Dada, Cubism and Surrealism. This period is crucial in shaping Paolozzi's approach in his artistic practice and his means of exploring subconscious thought and industrial aesthetics. One of Paolozzi's earliest notable works was a series of collages entitled Bunk, which he produced in 1957, and it signalled his transition towards pop art. Now, Bunk, this series of collages, reflected a new engagement with popular culture and mass media imagery. The collages, created from cutouts of American magazines, advertisement and comic strips, celebrated consumerism while simultaneously critiquing it. The bold use of colour, mixed media and imagery foreshadowed the later works like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein. So Paolozzi really did pave the way and was one of the forerunners of pop art due to his early exploration of ideas and themes. Now, returning to London in the 1950s, Paolozzi became a founding member of the Independent Group, also known as the IG Group, a collective of artists, writers, critics, and they used to regularly meet at the Institution of Contemporary Arts in London, known as the ICA. Now, the IG, this group that he was part of, was considered the birthplace of British pop art, and Paolozzi played a key role in its development. The group's discussions on mass media, culture, technology, and modernity furthered Paolozzi's interest into the intersection of art, science, and society. It was during this time as well that Paolozzi shifted his focus from two-dimensional collages into three-dimensional sculptures, using materials such as aluminium and bronze for the first time in his career. And his sculptures from this period, including two very notable ones, one known as Saint Sebastian IV and Cyclops, both produced in 1957, reflect his ongoing interest in machinery and human form, merging organic and mechanical elements in a manner that's reminiscent of surrealists, but with a distant touch of modernity. They're very apocalyptic, these sculptures, I find. They kind of look like Star Wars villains, if I'm truly honest. Very like otherworldly, and I think if you think about what he's gone through, having like lost his father in World War I and then being conscripted and having to serve in World War II, this exploration into machinery really completely makes sense, in my opinion, when you think about the industrial world after World War II and the things that he's seen. And these sculptures, they were not representations, but they were metaphors of the human condition in this rapidly industrialising world. Now, Paolozzi's fascination with industrial materials and techniques was evident in a work called Turning Head. This was a series that happened between 1953 and 1956, and it was inspired by the mathematician Alan Turing. These sculptures were characterised by their abstract, machine-like forms, were a tribute to Turing's pioneering work in computing and artificial intelligence. This was Paolozzi's nod to Turing's contributions to these fields. They also represented a conceptual leap for Paolozzi's practice, from a focus of aesthetics of machinery to an exploration of physiological implications. In the 1960s and 70s, this marked a period of experimentation and consolidation for Paolozzi in his practice. He began exploring screen printing, a medium that would allow him to further engage with popular culture and mass production techniques. In a series known as Is When, a collection of 11 screen prints inspired by the life and ideas of Ludwig Wittgenstein showcase his ability to blend philosophy, art, and popular culture. These prints featured a mix of text, geometric forms, and appropriated imagery, reflecting Paolozzi's interest in the philosophy of language and the human condition. During this period, Paolozzi also delved into public art, creating works which engaged directly with the urban environment. One of his most famous pieces from this era is known as the Whitworth Tapestry, a massive mural for the University of Manchester. This work, a mosaic of vibrant tiles, depicts an array of abstract forms and machine-like motifs, and demonstrated Paolozzi's ability to translate his collages into large-scale public art pieces. In 1968, Paolozzi was appointed the Professor of Ceramics at the Hochschule für Bildende Künste in Hamburg, Germany. This appointment marked a new phase in his career, during which he would continue to expand his artistic practice, incorporating new materials such as glass and ceramics into his works. His time in Germany was also notable for his collaborations with other artists and his participation in international exhibition, which only furthered and solidified his reputation as a leading figure in the contemporary art world. Now, the 1970s and the 1960s were characterised by a series of monumental works that firmly established Paolozzi as one of Britain's most predominant and pioneering sculptors. During this time, his style evolved towards architectural forms, combining elements of classical sculpture with modernist abstraction. His work during this period marked new scale and ambition, as seen in pieces like Vulcan, a massive bronze sculpture which was displayed at the Royal Academy of Arts, and Newton, which was produced in 1988, a larger-than-life bronze statue which you can now find outside the British Library. And Newton was inspired by William Blake's famous print of 1795, where it depicts Isaac Newton in a seated pose with geometric forms and tools, symbolising the interaction of art, science and discovery. And this was also a reoccurring theme of Paolozzi's work as well. Now, I think it's quite important here to point out that Paolozzi actually has quite a lot of contemporary art pieces that you can go and visit if you find yourself in London. So as just mentioned, Newton, which was made in 1988, you can find it on permanent display outside the British Library at Euston Station, or between Euston Station and King's Cross, and it's in the plaza there, and again, inspired by William Blake. And another, and I think his most significant public commission in London that people don't know is Eduardo Paolozzi, and you probably have passed it and never realised, is his Tottenham Court Road station mosaics. And this is his, as I've said, his most extensive public commission, and these mosaics cover a significant part of Tottenham Court Road's underground station. These vibrant and colourful mosaics are composed of thousands of tiles, and they depict geometric patterns, human figures and machine-like forms. So this is going back to translating his collages once again into a monumental scale. And the mosaics within the underground are actually a celebration of the diversity of London and these blended elements of mythology and contemporary and pop art coming together. And actually in 2015, part of the mosaics were removed during the station's renovation, leading to a public outcry for them to be restored and put back into their rightful place, which they were. Now, Head of Invention 1989 is another public work that you can see, which is now on display outside of the Design Museum in Kensington and Chelsea. Again, you don't have to go into the museum, it's at the front door, so just as you walk up to the museum, it's there. And then there's another work called Pescator, which you can also find at Euston Station. However, I'm not sure if it's there at the moment because there's a lot of work getting done. Oh gosh, what's the name of the new train line that's costing billions of pounds to get us into Birmingham Station 15 minutes earlier? HMS2, that's it. So there's a lot of work going on with HMS2 at the moment. So I'm not too sure if it's still there or it's been moved temporarily. But if you're in the area, you can see two of Paolozzi's works. And actually, if you're in London and you happen to be en route to Tate Britain via Pimlico Underground Station, one of the manhole covers or vent covers, which kind of looks like a weird robot, is actually a Paolozzi commission as well. And it's one of these ones where it just looks like a very odd artistic covering, but actually it was a commission, and it's an Eduardo Paolozzi as well. So he's kind of all over London, so you can always find a Paolozzi. You're never too far away from one. Now, in the final decades of Paolozzi's life, he continued to work prolifically, producing sculptures, prints, and public art projects. His later works, such as the manuscript of Monte Cassino, reflect a continued interest in historical themes and the human condition. Now, the manuscript of Monte Cassino is actually a bronze sculpture installed outside of the British Library, references a famous abbey in Italy that was destroyed during World War II, and it symbolises both the destruction and the endurance of heritage. And I think it's also a lovely nod to his Italian heritage, it being about this abbey that was destroyed. And despite suffering a stroke in the year 2000 that left him practically paralysed, Paolozzi remained active within the art world. He was knighted in 1989 in recognition of his contributions to British art, and in 2001 he was elected a Royal Academician. His work continues to be exhibited internationally, and he remained a prominent figure in the contemporary art world until his death in 2005. Now, Paolozzi's impact on the art world has been significant, and it spans several generations and movements. He was a pioneer with his particular role in the development of the British pop art movement. His works are characterised by a distinctive blend of high and low culture, merging classical references with contemporary themes and creating a dialogue between past and present. Paolozzi's influences expand beyond pop art, however, and his innovative use of materials and techniques in sculpture, particularly in incorporating industrial elements into his work. And his work is marked by a constant questioning of the relationship between art, technology and society, making him a key figure in post-World War avant-garde art in Britain. As a Scottish artist of Italian descent, Paolozzi has also played a really crucial role in developing Scottish art and putting Scottish artists on the map. His international success has brought attention to the Scottish art scene, encouraging a new generation of artists to engage with the global trends while also drawing on local traditions. Paolozzi's work is deeply rooted in his Scottish heritage, reflecting on both his use of materials and his techniques that evoke the industrial landscapes of his youth. His commitment to public art and education has also had a lasting impact on the Scottish art community, inspiring new generations to appreciate the role of art in the public life. With a career spanning more than 6 decades, he established himself as one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. And as I've said, his work, characterised by his innovative use of materials, engagement of popular culture, and exploration of the intersections between art, science, and technology, has left a lasting impact on the art world. And there you have it, another episode of Jo's Art History Podcast, Bitesize. Small, manageable podcast episodes that see me, Jo McLaughlin, your host and resident art historian, deep dive into a specific artwork or artist in 10 minutes or less. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, rate and subscribe. It helps other people find us and it means more to me than you know. And while you're doing that, why not share the podcast with someone you think might enjoy it too? If you'd like to support the future of the podcast, please consider purchasing and gifting me a book from my Amazon wishlist, which is in the show notes below. This will be used to research future episodes of the podcast, both full-length episodes and bite-sized episodes too. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do that in several ways. You can email me, joesarthistory@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram, which is @joesarthistory. Finally, I've been your host and resident art historian, Jo McLaughlin. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, keep learning and remember, art is for all. Bye.